Hey everybody, Dom Nicastro, CMSWire Managing Editor, here with our latest contributor interview. And this is a new contributor, new face. So welcome to the CMSWire Contributor world, Julia Ahlfeldt. How you doing?
Thank you. Thanks, Dom, for the warm welcome. I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
Good. I'm glad we found you all the way down and way over in South Africa. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And you're doing your work as a independent customer experience consultant down there, and it's going well, it seems. You have I'm pretty jealous of the setup. You have some good weather, I'd imagine.
It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. We're at the sort of the tail end of summer right now. Climate's kind of like California, so it's nice. No place is perfect, but Cape Town is a nice place to be based.
Yeah. And doing your thing in CX, that's your passion, that's your,
Mm-hmm.
career. And just tell our listeners and viewers kind of how you arrived in this role you're in now as a CX
Yeah.
leader, your CCXP, all good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I early on in my career, I was doing strategy advisory work and just fell in love with all things customer. I loved the surveys, the research, redesigning experiences, all of that. And so I just felt this kind of natural gravitational pull towards, being an advocate for the customer. And then that sort of coincided with the timing of this age of the customer, the rise of empowered customers, when businesses were really needing to respond to, right, how do we deliver better experiences? And so I've, found my niche and have evolved what I do in my knowledge base, to kind of match the needs of this evolving field of work, which has been a lot of fun and very exciting. And, when I arrived here in South Africa, it was quite new. So it's been nice to, kind of put my stamp on customer experience in South Africa, be a small
Yeah.
piece of the change that's happening here.
Yeah, you finding like, organizations there and like groups, like meetups, that kind of thing are there folks in that area taking CX
Yeah.
seriously?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a thriving and growing customer experience community. I'd say it's a couple years behind
Mm.
the US and Western Europe and the UK. But the community is growing hand over fist. Lots of organizations are developing CX functions within their businesses. And it's an exciting time, and it's great. I think the local CX community is able to take some learnings and examples from abroad, but then also the context for business is quite different here. The realities are
Yeah.
different in a developing country. So, I think that the community has taken some learnings as best practices, but really made them their own, which has been very cool to see and be a part of.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you joined us to impart your wisdom in CX with our CMS Wire readers. And this first article is a huge topic. It gets a lot of engagement on our website. UX meets CX, right? It's
Mm,
always a struggle of figuring out who you're designing experiences for, what kind of experience you're designing. Is UX CX, or are they two different disciplines? Are they intermingled? So
yeah.
give us the overview of this piece, and particularly with the bell curve design you talk about. You think that's
Yeah.
a good approach here?
Yeah, well, this article was born out of a question that a colleague had asked me.
Mm,
She was working on some experience design, and she said that, she was working with some UX designers, and they were really pushing to, design for the extreme users. And she popped me an email and said, how should I think about this when I'm designing experiences and journeys? And so it
mm,
really got me thinking about how as customer experience professionals, we take some of the learnings from other related practices, business areas like user experience, UX, which is, I kind of see the UX practitioners out there as kind of like our cousins,
yeah,
it's very related work. If you break down UX and CX and you look at the raw definitions, they're actually quite similar, but in practice, UX designers are oftentimes operating in the digital space, and CX designers or customer experience professionals are working kind of more in a holistic journey space, looking at journeys that bob and weave in and out of different channels of interaction. So, when we're thinking about who you're designing experiences for, if you're designing a product or a digital experience, it might make sense to design for the extreme user. I could see a case for that because it's a narrow scope, right?
Yeah.
But when you're thinking about designing a full-on, customer journey, something that is, lengthy and complex, if you're designing for the extreme user, you're going to end up with this kind of like clunky and convoluted experience that isn't, sort of fit for purpose for the majority of users out there. So the idea with the bell curve that I was talking about in my article is, looking at kind of the peak of your bell curve, as the sort of core of your user group. That's the bulk of your users. So the kind of, 60 to 80% of your users. So, really understanding, and within that, you can have a whole bunch of different kinds of personas and segments and stuff, but that's your sort of bulk of your users. Start there. Don't start at the tails of your bell curve. Start at the big, sort of chunky peak. Understand those users, understand their wants, their needs, their drivers. Then work your way outwards towards the tails, understanding, what exceptions might push people to the edges. So maybe somebody has limited connectivity or, financial constraints or something like that. Understand what it is that could push your users towards the edges of your bell curve and begin building in exceptions to accommodate for those users. But I think, rather than starting at the tails and working your way in, which might be appropriate in the case of user experience, in the case of experience design and customer journey design, I suggest, start at the peak and work your way outward.
Yeah, it's well said. And it's funny because I work with designers all the time for CMSWire, and you said cousins earlier. I like that comparison. It's almost like it can be the best cousin relationship because you have the CX people who are just data driven, right? And focusing on who their target audience is. Then you have the designers who are so good with visual stuff, but at the same time, you can't let them run wild with like, hey, we read the Adobe Digital Trends report, and these are the top things in design these days.
Yeah.
Great, but my audience is impacted in a different way. So isn't that true? Like you can have it needs to be a healthy balance of the data meets design.
Absolutely. You have to have that balance there. And I find often with designers, digital designers, they're used to working in a much more narrow world, the digital world, an app-based experience, and they're sort of laser focused on the wireframes and
Colors.
designing the colors and designing the screen flows and stuff. But they're not always thinking about the experience as it pertains to, okay, well, what happens with your customer's life when they're not sitting there holding their phone looking at the app? What other kinds of interactions are they maybe going to have with the brand that fall outside of just the digital realm? And I think that the data is really where CX professionals can shine. And if you have access to information about what's going on in the journey beyond just the digital realm, to use that to build great experiences.
Makes perfect sense. Well, let's wrap this up with some things you might be looking forward to in your next CMSWire columns. Not to put you on the spot, but what can readers expect out of you going forward? Where do you think the rest of 2023 you might kind of dive into when you're not busy helping CX leaders do their jobs?
I'm really interested in how customer experience expectations are changing and evolving.
Oh, by the way, my door opened. My dog came in. He's here, by the way.
I wasn't sure if that was a ghost or just
it's the dog. Let's take a quick peek. There he is.
Hey. I've got a little furry coworker here too. She's chilling on the bed.
I love it.
Yeah.
Quiet for now.
Quiet for now, but she just waits until the calls and then starts, screaming.
Yapping away.
Yep. So I'm really interested in how customer experience expectations are changing and evolving.
Yeah.
So what's changing in consumers' lives and how their needs are changing and evolving, and then also in how we can help organizations do a better job of delivering on those
Yeah.
experiences. So what can they do, from a data management perspective, from a governance perspective, from a culture change perspective, to really give customers the experiences that they want, the kinds of experiences that drive repeat purchases and loyalty, because that's really what this
Yeah.
customer experience game is all about.
Yeah. And I love it.
Earning the love and trust of your repeat business of your customers.
I love how it changes too, and it surprises
Mm,
you. You
yeah,
can roll out the best chatbot experience. You can throw in ChatGPT into your contact center, and I know a lot of vendors are doing that now. And then
yeah,
at the end of the day, your data says your customers want to get on the phone with you, right? Like you're
yeah.
just always surprised by what customer preferences are and the changing customer preferences.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. It's amazing. I was doing some research for a talk that I'm going to give later this month about AI applications for customer experience, and a lot of the examples that people had mentioned in articles and stuff. I was researching them, and it was like, oh well, this actually is no longer the case. So okay, Sephora's actually dropped their color match app thing, or the North Face has dropped their
yeah,
chatbot that helps you figure out the coat that you're going to wear, because you know maybe it worked really well for a couple of years, but consumers needs changed. There maybe
yeah.
the technology that they're interfacing with your brand through, or the ways that they're interfacing with your brand, changed, and so you've got to keep these things fresh and relevant. And just because something works today doesn't mean that it's going to work tomorrow. And the second that we take our eye off the ball
Yeah.
is the second that
Yeah.
we get ourselves into
Yeah.
trouble.
Sometimes you're just in the mood to do work while you chat with a customer service agent, right?
Yeah.
Like I had that the other day. It took me like an hour, and about 5 times they said, "Are you still there?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here."
I'm still here.
Right?
I'm still
Like
here.
I want to get it fixed. I don't care how long it takes. That
Yeah.
happens. There's that scenario. So
Yeah.
there's just so many scenarios, and the key is just watching your data, watching what your customers are saying, taking
Exactly.
surveys, pulse, feedback,
Mm-hmm.
customer advisory boards. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Julia, we can't thank you enough for joining the CMSWire community.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're happy to have you. We're looking forward to many more articles down the road. Best of luck with that presentation.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Have a great one.
Bye now.
Bye.